The house was silent, except for the faint ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. Alexander, the young billionaire, returned home late that night after closing an important deal overseas. His mind was still racing with numbers, strategies, and future plans. But as he stepped into the grand living room of the mansion, he froze. There, on the velvet couch, sat his father, the man everyone in the city knew as powerful, untouchable, unshaken. Yet at that moment, the old man was weeping uncontrollably, his strong shoulders trembling like a child's, and beside him, holding him tightly, was the family's maid, Grace, her arms wrapped around him, her face soft with compassion. Alexander could not believe his eyes. His father had never allowed anyone to see him weak. What was happening? He stepped forward slowly, the polished floor echoing under his shoes. "Father," he asked cautiously. The old man quickly wiped his face, but the tears kept flowing. Grace did not move. She held his hand, steady and firm, as if giving him the strength he had long hidden from the world. "Why are you here so late?" His father tried to sound stern, but his voice cracked. Alexander's eyes narrowed. "Why are you crying in her arms?" His gaze shifted to Grace. She looked back at him with eyes that carried both pain and courage. For years, Grace had been more than just a maid in their household. She had been there since Alexander's childhood, always kind, always watchful. Yet he never thought of her beyond her duties. But now, standing there in the dim light, she looked different, like someone holding a secret too heavy to keep. "Alexander," Grace whispered, "you deserve to know the truth." The room went still. Even the clock seemed to pause. "Truth," Alexander repeated, his heart pounding. Grace glanced at his father, who lowered his head in shame. She took a deep breath and spoke. "Your father is not the man you think he is. Years ago, before the wealth, before the empire, he was on the edge of losing everything. His partners betrayed him, the banks turned away, and enemies circled like vultures. He had nothing left." Alexander's eyes widened. He had grown up believing his father had always been successful, always ahead of the world. Grace continued, her voice trembling but strong. "In that moment of despair, he came to me. I was not just a maid then. I was a businesswoman, though hidden from the public eye. I had the funds, the connections, and the knowledge he desperately needed. I gave him the first loan that saved his company. I guided him when he wanted to give up. Without me, everything you see today, this mansion, your fortune, your name it, would not exist." Alexander's breath caught in his throat. He looked at his father, who could not meet his eyes. "Is this true?" The old man's shoulders slumped. "Yes," he whispered. "I built my empire on her strength. She was my partner, my savior. And I repaid her by hiding her, by letting the world see her only as a maid in my home." Grace's hand tightened around his. Tears glistened in her eyes. "I never asked for recognition. I stayed because I cared for this family. But tonight, his guilt broke him. He cannot hide it anymore." Alexander felt the room spinning. All his life, he admired his father as a giant, a man who conquered the impossible. Now he realized the truth. The foundation of their empire had been carried by the quiet woman who stood before him. Silence stretched heavy. Then Alexander stepped closer, his voice shaking. "Grace, why did you never tell me?" She gave him a sad smile. "Because sometimes, the world is not ready for the truth. But you are." Alexander looked at his father, then back at Grace. The image of his father crying in her arms burned in his mind. But it was no longer weakness, it was humanity. A hidden truth had been revealed, and with it, the meaning of strength had changed forever. That night, the young billionaire made a vow. He would no longer let Grace's story remain buried in the shadows. The world would know the truth that behind every empire, sometimes the greatest power is the one no one sees.